Come satisfy your appetite for wealth with baking profits. Now, here's your hosts, Mike and Brad.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another week of Baking Profits. We're your hosts, Mike, aka DeFi Donut.
And I'm Brad, aka the Bread Maker.
And today we're going to do a little bit of a DeFi deep dive into node season, talk about the rugs, talk about overcoming Ponzinomics, and why you shouldn't be bot hopping. Now, if you'd like to, you can follow the crumbs on our socials at Baking Profits, at Bread Bites, at the Bread Maker, at DeFi Donut.
And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
So tonight we are drinking Jefferson's straight bourbon whiskey, and
Jefferson's.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty smooth. So go get yourself a bottle of that, and you can drink it with us. So when it comes to DeFi in general, we see these big waves of these projects that just come in, and one of the biggest waves that I've personally seen was node season. Right, there were so many people that they made a bunch of money. But most people lost a bunch of money.
Most lost money.
Yeah, I would say like 90% of people took some big fat L's in these projects. But the biggest common question that a lot of people probably have, probably many were too afraid to ask, but like, what the heck is a node and how does it work? What are the mechanics of it? And I don't think too many people realize that it's solely based off of Ponzinomics.
100%.
And Ponzinomics, for those of you that don't understand, is like in order for you to make money, more people have to come in after you. It's a pyramid scheme. It's like an MLM. You have to sell this project to more people so that their money comes in so that you can take money out.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, most of these projects, they came in with their guaranteed APYs or guaranteed returns of like, hey, you're going to make guaranteed 1% a day or 2% a day. Some even got crazy and were offering 5, 6, 7, 8% a day. And that's how they lured people in is, a lot of these people didn't understand the back end mechanics of it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people didn't understand the longevity of it or potential longevity of it. So they get lured in because, someone here is saying, hey, you can go ahead and put your money in. You don't have to do anything, and we'll return you 1, 2, 3% a day. And some of those projects were able to, you could ROI your money within, a handful of weeks. And what you didn't realize is the fact that when you initially got in, it was really only rewarded the people that got into the project at the very, very, very beginning. Oh, yeah. Anybody that got in after that, or most people that got in after that, for the most part, got screwed. And that was the majority of people, probably, like you said, like 80 to 90% of the people that participated in node season ended up taking a pretty fat L.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it didn't even really have to take a week to ROI. In some cases, it would be a day or two.
Yeah, that was some of the crazier projects that, they ended pretty fast.
Yeah, yeah. And I definitely think that, as this wave is coming in, it was pushed by it's really fueled by influencer marketing. A lot of these projects they knew that, we're going to take these people's money. So spending a little bit of money up front, paying these influencers these insane dollar figures to really just start, tweeting out to the masses. And as a user, right, and you're looking for the next big thing, and all of a sudden you see, 20, 30 influencers, people that you might follow, people that you might respect, and they start pushing it out because, for them, it was a nice payday. And I don't hate on those individuals for taking that payday. That's easy money for them, right? Why wouldn't you? So naturally, those people then go and buy that project. The project has all this money come in, and what do? They rip the rug out from underneath us.
Yeah, I think also a lot of it had to do with timing because you got to think at that point in time, we were rolling back, almost 2 years now, I guess. In that point in time, the market was at its peak. Everything in crypto was going up. Everything had seen these great increases, and it was almost like, crypto, I feel like, got this feeling of like being invincible. It's like you get in, you're guaranteed to make money. So I feel like these projects kind of maybe incidentally preyed on that fact of like, hey, everything's going up in crypto, you get in this project and you'll make money just like you potentially have made money on all this other stuff. So, and then obviously bearish periods came and node season started to die out and things like that happened. But, I think in that moment, it was a combination of the fact that this new kind of niche within an existing niche of crypto was built. And then on top of that, the market was just booming. So everybody was, peak hype, buying into everything. There was tons of money flowing in, everything was great. And so it was just like this super high that everybody was on. And then, you come in and see these node projects and you're just like, screw it. I've made money on all this other stuff. Here's another thing that I'm going to make bank on this daily guaranteed, percentage return. And, ultimately, for the most part, most people got burned.
Yeah. And as you see, those people make money as they post those gains, naturally you feel the FOMO and you're like, I got to get into this as well. And of course, crypto has that, underlining like thought of like, I want to get rich quick. And nodes, I don't want to say promised, but they definitely promoted the get rich quick mindset. And some people sadly did get rich very quickly, as we mentioned, just by rugging that project. So, I know that there were some extreme rugs, there were some slow rugs, some quiet rugs, some that legitimately just failed, and some are still kind of chugging along. I think the ones that, the biggest thievery that I can think of, I know you were invested in them, I wasn't invested in them, but Ring.
Unbelievable, yeah. That was a tough one. And the funny thing is with Ring is the fact that I did get in fairly early with them, but I took the wrong path. There was two paths you could go with nodes, more or less. You could cash out daily, and every time your node, made your daily 1% or 2% or whatever it was, some of these projects were up in the 10, 15% range or even higher. I think Ring was one of them that I think you could ROI on Ring in like less than a week or maybe 2 weeks at most. And, you had the opportunity to either cash out daily on that or you could compound into another node. And that's where I personally got burned. I compounded into additional nodes on Ring, and then I remember, I'm pretty sure it was around Christmas time that this thing, I was away visiting family, and I just remember looking at the price and everything that was happening, and then they tried to bridge over to like AVAX or something like that, and it was just, I just saw all my money after I had just bought a couple more nodes. I had just compounded my existing nodes. If I had just cash those nodes out, I would have made bank on that project. But instead, I compounded them into additional nodes to try and make more money. And, that's where the Ponzi started its inevitable downfall, which, that was one of the few, that was probably one of the top 3 or 4 that cost me a big chunk of money.
Yeah, fortunately, I didn't get into that. I remember you selling me on that.
I did. At the moment, it sounded good.
Yeah, it did. It did. I actually was very close to pulling the trigger on it. It was right as they were, I guess, forking off into AVAX, I believe. And I went an alternative route. I actually got into Comb right around that time, which
that was a good one.
My story is a little bit unique and different when it comes to nodes. I happened to catch all the great projects very early on. I got into Fire very early on. I was able to ROI on almost all of my projects except really just 3, and that was Atlas, which Atlas was promoted as a ethical project. The team talked about all the rugs, how they wanted to fight that. They seemed logical. They had in-house developers, and they seemed like a really solid team. And then, out of nowhere, they just kind of, vanished and disappeared. And
like most of them.
Yeah, just like most of them. But when it comes to like true thievery, I think of, these like ring-like projects, pyramid nodes, gorilla nodes, Dino, these type of projects that they knew going into this, it was going to be a rug all along. I definitely think that some of those projects that quote unquote rugged, I don't think that they had that thought going in. I think that they thought, we're going to be able to solve this problem. We're going to be able to make people money. We're going to make money. And then the reality sank in that, like math is showing us that we're gonna lose everything in like 25 days, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say the majority of projects were probably in it as a cash grab. And there was a select few that were like, oh, I can solve this and we can build something and make it to where it'll be sustainable. And realistically, at the end of the day, that just wasn't possible with the tokenomics and the structure of a node project. You're not going to be able to guarantee a specific return on a daily basis and sustain that long term. It's not possible. I know even me and you during the hype of node season and when we were in it, and I know I personally was pretty vocal about kind of calling out projects or sharing what things projects could do differently that could ultimately, make them successful long term. And I know a lot of people were consistently like, make your own project. And I know we kind of really super preliminarily looked at the idea and we realized that there was literally no way, it doesn't matter how good we are, or how smart we are, or any of that stuff. It just, the mathematics never were going to add up to where we were going to be able to securely, consistently make people money through a node project. And that's, part of the reason why we never went that route was because we just knew that it just wasn't possible. And I think, there were some teams kind of, I would put ourselves in the ethical, transparent, trustworthy group or bucket. And, I think at the end of the day, if we had created a node project, we would be lumped in with the rest of them as a failure. Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we were trying to scam people. It just means that, the structure of that overall business model was never going to work regardless of who took it on.
Yeah, and I think there are teams that were very incompetent. Strong comes to mind. I don't think that they intended to steal people's money or do anything like that. I think that they really thought they had something, and the fees on that, just because it was on ETH, it was the gas, it was so expensive, and
gas fees were so insane back then, man. I remember even just NFT projects or any of these nodes or something like that, I would pay hundreds of dollars to execute a transaction. Thinking about that now, I'm like, God, what an idiot. I blew so much money on $300 ETH gas fees. And I'm just like, that is nonsense.
Yeah, you were supporting all the miners out there. You were pushing DeFi further and further. Crypto.
If you want to spin it in a positive light, I guess we can go that route. For me personally, I was just burning a hole through my MetaMask wallet. But yeah.
Yeah. I know when we talk about incompetent teams, I know you specifically have a grudge about one of these teams. I don't mind them. I did make money with them. I made a lot of money with Thor. I got in at a very, just perfect opportunity, and I wasn't one. I compounded one time, and then I realized I just need to pull my money out. That one time that I compounded, I actually convinced you to compound as well, and it was probably not,
man.
It's probably not the wisest choice.
I can't believe that, man. I was going to end up profitable on Thor, and I was about to cash out, and you were like, yo, man, you should get one more Odin node. It will be great. You're going to make this amount of money. You're going to make this amount of Thor per day. You'll ROI on in this amount of time. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm going to go ahead and compound this thing. And I got screwed. Price basically went to zero almost instantly after I compounded that last node. Yeah. And I got pretty screwed on that deal. So, part of me is probably a little bit sour because I ended up taking a fairly hefty loss. I think I probably took around a $30,000 loss on Thor. And had I not compounded that last node, I probably would have taken about an $18,000 net profit on Thor. Maybe my tune would be different, but I don't really think it would be. I think at the end of the day, my gripe or grudge with Thor in general was the fact that it just seemed like everything was just bullshit. They never executed on anything. I think the only thing they actually executed on was they said they were going to build a new website, and then they ultimately built a new website. And I'm like,
they did.
Out of all the things that they had all these things that they were going to execute on, and they never executed on any of that shit. It was all just smoke and mirrors, in my opinion. And I will give it to their head person. I don't remember his actual name, but he goes by Loki in their Discord or whatever. And he was just he tried to be like a DeFi Jesus, and like he was. I will say he is a smooth talker, but I think he was just full of shit all the time, man. Like, I don't think he just talked and talked and talked about all this stuff that was going to happen. And it's like he had a team and he supposedly had 20, 30, 40 employees, whatever. And like, you know, he didn't do shit. Like, they didn't do anything. And then obviously my other gripe with them is like, I voiced this a long time ago, but they went and built Hive. And that to me is just like it's just like a slap in the face to your existing project. Like, you can't can't be the CEO of one project and then be a CEO of another project and tell me that your time is, you know, you're still fully dedicated to Thor. You're not. Regardless of how much, you know, you say you are, you're not. You have another project now, so you have time that gets allocated to something different. So, yeah, at the end of the day, for me, I don't buy it. It's just all a crock of shit for me.
Yeah, there were times where I wondered, like, is that Himdall guy and Loki the same person?
Probably.
I mean, it wouldn't have been a terrible idea. I think that they kind of fall in that bucket of like, I feel like Loki and the Thor team, they thought that they were going to be able to solve this problem and do well. I know the game, I think it was Gods of Asgard. You know, it looked promising. It had some pretty good mechanics, things that I've talked to you about that would probably make a project work. They just couldn't pull it off. That I could see a little bit of incompetency in there because there were, you know, during their Thor's Day, you know, AMAs where they would talk about all the things that they're going to do. You know, one thing I'll hand it to them is they were pretty open and pretty transparent, and they were trying to be ethical. They weren't, because I realized that at the same time, all around them in this sphere, these projects are just literally stealing people's money. And I never felt like they were stealing people's money. They were just a failed project at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they came into it thinking like, oh, we're about to steal a lot of people's money. I think they wanted to figure it out. So I wouldn't necessarily put them in the category of some of the other rugs that you listed off that were legit, like, oh, we're in it and we're, you know, creating this project and we're going to rug everybody, you know, at the end of the day. So I don't think that was really their intention. But I do think like most of it was lip service at the end of the day. I mean, like they had these Thor's Day and you say that they were transparent and all that stuff. And yeah, it's like, you can be transparent and you can talk about all the stuff in the world, but if you don't execute on anything, I mean, at the end of the day, that's either just like, you're an idiot or it's just bad business. Like you like, it's one or the other. You literally either don't know how to do anything and you're just making stuff up in these AMAs, or, you know, you potentially choose not to do anything, or you just don't know how to run your business. So, I mean, I don't necessarily put them in this category of like rugs per se, but when it comes to like, if we're trying to categorize incompetence, I'm putting them in incompetence because they basically achieved a new website build in the matter of like, I don't know, a year or so of whatever they were building and promising and all this stuff. And everything that they promised, none of it really got executed on except a new website. So for me, that's incompetent.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I let my nodes expire. I saw the end coming. I didn't want to pay those fees. I didn't want to be in that ecosystem. But, you know, when we think about rugs, how many rugs do you think off the top of your dome right now can you name? Like if you just started naming them.
That would be tough. I know one was Fire. You mentioned that. That was a good one that triggered me. I didn't even think about that. Forgot about Fire. Univ was one. I know you mentioned like Dino nodes, Pyramid nodes. I remember calling them out for a while. I mean, there was like there's this one that was like a NFT project called like Motherfucker, and it was or MFR nodes or something like that. That was another one that I just thought of. I know we went through all those weird ones where it was like Dino nodes, Gorilla nodes, and it was all these like
Jurassic nodes.
Yeah, it was all of those.
Pirate nodes, Chronos nodes.
Yep. Tavern. That was actually one of the few. I think I had the opposite experience that you did. You were like, I made money on all but 3, and I think I might have lost money on all but 3. So I had the complete opposite experience that you did. Tavern was one of the few that I actually did make money on. It was nice. That Alf Finance was another one. They rugged. Yeah. What about you? You got any other ones that I'm missing?
Oh man, I'm sitting here thinking, Ring, Katana, Samurai,
Soldier nodes,
Kingdoms.
Kingdoms.
I know we mentioned Atlas before, Red Light. I wouldn't necessarily call them a rug per se because they're still existing, similar to Thor, but failed project. There's so many. Hopefully when people listen to this, maybe they'll be thinking in their head like, what about you forgot about this big one?
I'm sure we forgot about a ton. I mean, I feel like we probably listed 10 or 15 right there, but I mean, there's probably at least 15, 20, 30 more that we're not even thinking of.
Probably, 100%.
Probably a bunch of ones that I was a part of that I got rugged on that I didn't even cross my mind at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, forgot about power nodes, Polar.
Yeah, that's 2 good ones right there.
There's some others on the tip of my tongue. I'm thinking of our passive income tracker because we had a drop down in there that had probably 100 node projects.
There was a ton of projects.
Yeah, an entire tab was dedicated to people's nodes and their compounding and, rebases and things like that. So
that was a badass spreadsheet, though.
Yeah, it was.
That was pretty legit.
That was the first spreadsheet I ever built.
That thing was legit. But yeah, I'm trying to think of any other ones. But I keep thinking of Univ. I know I already mentioned it, but I keep thinking of that Caddyverse person. God, I hated that person so much. I would get into it with them on Twitter on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the incompetency of most of the, I would feel comfortable saying probably 99% of these had no real world business experience. They didn't know how to interact with people. I mean, Caddyverse is a great example. That person would get into so many arguments with people online, and it was just, I think at one point in time, her boyfriend hacked her account. Yeah.
100%.
And started calling people out. I don't know. It was a joke. I made money on that one as well.
I did not partake in Univ. I traded it, the actual token, and I actually made money from trading the token, but I didn't actually partake. But yeah. I
think that was the first node project that turned their nodes into NFTs. And I remember thinking like, that was pretty innovative. And I don't want to say that there was no innovation here. At the end of the day, I think a lot of these projects really were trying to solve like, how can we sustain this? But sustainability just without utility, not there.
Yeah, and I mean with the framework that they built the business on, there was no way.
Yeah.
But I will say, yeah, I mean like something like Univ, yeah, that was pretty cool. The NFTs, it was cool that you could like go for I guess you would just be able to like upgrade from a planet to another planet. So I think some of the concepts that some of these projects had was legit. I'm thinking of another one right now. I think it was called Casino Nodes, and they were supposedly going to build a casino and stuff. Ended up rugging a bunch of people, but I'm sure I'll consistently have some of these popping up through my head throughout the rest of the episode. But yeah, I mean, I think there definitely was some cool innovation and some things that we hadn't seen in the space and some intricate ways of running their businesses. But at the end of the day, with the model that they chose of nodes, I mean, just bound to fail.
Yeah, I mean, I know we were doing a lot of protocol reviews around that time, and I know you specifically were calling out these projects. I mean, you're pretty brutal there for a bit, but some of the things that you were talking about were, the experience with, your business experience, like how are you going to be able to manage this money? Like, I don't think a lot of people realize that, these were probably younger individuals, knew how to code, realized pretty quickly there's a lot of money to be made, and they were probably, just chilling in their living room, eating a bag of Cheetos with their boxers on, and literally those individuals are managing millions of dollars.
It's crazy to think about that, and that the fact that some of these people were either making millions of dollars or just managing millions of dollars, and they had no business experience, no real world experience, potentially never even had a job before, and they're just running these projects, and it's just like, I mean, that's pretty peak crypto right there. But in this node season, it was kind of wild west when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I think it still is to an extent, but I'll be interested to see kind of what's on the horizon from that standpoint. But, I think we did a pretty good job of just like, especially whenever I was kind of like rating these projects and stuff like that, I felt like I was pretty accurate. This kind of goes back to what we talked about in our first episode of just like the ability for us to identify good and bad actors in the space pretty quickly. I think we can pick up on it really fast. I mean, when we were doing protocol reviews at the beginning with Bread Bites, I mean, one of the projects we sat down with, another one that rugged was Spring Games. Yeah. And I mean, like, we didn't even look into their project yet too much, and we had a meeting with their dev or whatever, or their head person or whatever, and like
she was a joke.
Yeah, I mean, like, we were in that meeting for like 15 minutes, and we came out of that, and we were already like, we didn't even look at the project, didn't even go to the website, didn't do anything. We were already like, this is gonna be a rug, guaranteed. And then we failed their project on the protocol review after we dug into it because of all the functionality and features we already knew it was gonna fail.
Yeah. I think we failed so many projects on just security alone. So I know one of the things that we were looking at were multi-sig, and it was so shocking to find that some projects didn't have them. Some of those multi-sigs were the same person, just different accounts, and it really was a joke. And I know KY or Assure like was big back then, right? Like, oh, you gotta pay for this, and they were charging out the ass for those.
Yeah, I remember some of the project leaders saying they were getting charged like $25,000 to KYC, and it's like, what?
Yeah, and I'm at the end of the day, it's like there's what kind of repercussions really were there, right? I mean,
yeah, they weren't going to be able to do anything.
No, I mean, they just reported to the authorities, but did they report any of these? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, even if they did, like, are the police actually going to, for the most part, going to do anything? They're going to probably be like, this crypto is just some like teenage kid screwing around.
Yeah.
Not worth our time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't make sense to investigate this stuff. When
most of it's like a Do Kwon type of situation or like an FTX.
Yeah.
Like billions of dollars type of thing. I don't know. I'd be surprised following back up on some of these node situations, any of the ones that got reported to police, if any of them actually, substantiated anything.
Yeah, it probably would take at least 2 senators' kids to lose money into one of these projects.
Exactly.
I do know, like, outside of just the multi-sig and security, another thing that we really looked at was just their flexibility, whether or not they were going to adjust to the times. I mean, I'm going to say my absolute favorite node project still exists today was Comb. I got into them extremely early. I believe I was probably one of the first 30 people in there with Moon, the dev, and he was incredible, and they adjusted into something completely different than a node really before everybody else. And the payouts, I mean, it went from this crazy high APY to, of course, a normal traditional finance, but they were smart enough to realize. And I remember Moon talking about how, look, we did we looked at our tokenomics. We looked at it statistically. We're not going to be able to make this project last for very long. And they were open, they were honest, and they told everybody we're going to shift. And I felt like what they shifted into was pretty legit. And not a lot of projects did that. I remember Fire constantly saying, we had a mathematician look at this.
Stupid, dude. They're like, we can last for 33 years. I'm like, what?
I would love to take Alexa back then and have her look at all of their tokenomics.
God, that would have been legit. She would just be calling everybody out, be like, nah, you got 6 days left.
Yeah. Honestly, she probably would have blown the fuck up and we would have never had her on Bread Bites.
Yeah.
She'd be retired on the beach somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those projects that were, doing that kind of stuff, it's just like, at that point, it's like, is the mathematician like, that they have, is it a real person or is it made up? Or do they not know what the heck they're doing? Like, I don't know. That kind of stuff was pretty interesting to see whenever a lot of those guys were saying that.
Yeah, it was probably like the dev's, 11-year-old kid.
Yeah,
He's like, I know math. I can add.
Yeah.
I one of the things that I thought some of these projects try to dabble into was the gamification, trying to bring a little bit of utility. I mean, we reviewed so many projects, and I always liked the ones with those utilities. That's essentially providing a reason that these projects would I don't want to say survive. I guess they
Survive longer.
Yes, they survived a little bit longer, and it gives you it takes you a step away from that Ponzinomics, and it allows people to interact with other people. I know Kingdoms, it was all sort of like they were creating a chess game. Pirate Nodes, they had like a battleship game. I mean, those are cool concepts, and you know, a little bit of out of the box thinking was happening. The casino nodes that you were talking about, yeah, that could have blown up into something amazing if they had actually put together some sort of casino.
Yeah.
You know, in DeFi. These type of utilities are one step closer to sustainability, but they're never going to get there just off of, you know, that single thing. They had to do all kinds of other things beyond that. But I definitely thought the gamification provided like a purpose for the project, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see that people started pivoting into that and recognizing that there was a need for utility there. You kind of mentioned Comb. I'm not exactly sure what they're up to these days, but they are still around. So that's interesting. I know a lot of what they shifted into was like liquidity pools to kind of sustain their project a little bit more. So it's cool to see them kind of like see around corners a little bit and identify like, hey, we need to pivot if we want to stay around. But from the gamification side, I think, you know, there was definitely some projects that took that opportunity on and we're like, hey, you know, we can, you know, create revenue through another way. But at the end of the day, there's no way they were just going to, I mean, at the end of the day, the nodes just like, you couldn't keep up with what the cost or demand was, which was, you know, 1% a day, 2% a day. Even some of these projects that we're offering, they got down to like 0.5% or 0.25% a day, and it's still just unrealistic.
Yeah.
I do still kind of think a little bit, maybe a popular casino could pull something like this off long term. But you got to jump through regulation hoops and all kinds of other crazy stuff to potentially make something like that a reality. So I think at the end of the day, just, you know, the result is that there was no way that any of these projects were going to be able to sustain long term.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that I had pitched to you initially, especially when we talked about we might dive into this node thing, it was a mixture of nodes, NFTs, and this like whole gamification. I had this idea about the MMO game. Essentially, think of something like World of Warcraft, right? And the in-game currency is the project's token. Now, what you're doing with a game like that, especially if you can sell it in the App Store or, you know, Google Play, whatever, that the off-chain is sort of interacting and helping support the on-chain, you know, individuals. So you could play the game off chain and you could be using this currency, not knowing that people are like, you're providing real value for the people that are on chain.
Right.
And, you know, for the people that are on chain, you know, you can create nodes within the game. So think of it as like, okay, I go and I build a blacksmith, right? And the blacksmith creates weapons. I could, you know, sell those weapons to other people in game for those currencies, and it's like those tokens have value. You could even take it a step further, like maybe you have mines inside of the game that mine for gold. You take your gold and you turn that into something, and so you keep providing more and more layers of the gamification. It gets people involved in the game, and then we talked about like high end, you know, like okay, if you go fight a dragon or whatever, and it drops a sword, that sword is an NFT, and then you can sell that on the open market, on OpenSea or whatever, and it's like, okay, now these NFTs have value, and they could be 1-for-1 NFTs. Like maybe the sword that I got today has different stats than the sword that I get tomorrow, or whatever. Like maybe the longer the dragon lives, the stronger these things get. I mean, there's so many possibilities, and I think we will see that down the line from these big companies like Blizzard and whatnot. It makes sense for them to do something like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think my parallel to this or kind of comparison is that kind of similar to what we talked about in our last episode with centralized exchanges versus decentralized exchanges, and the fact that, you know, decentralized exchanges, to get to the point of being a powerhouse, they really need liquidity and they need volume and they need, you know, growth and exposure. And I think for your idea of like a crypto version of World of Warcraft, more or less, the biggest challenge there is getting people to adopt and consistently play it.
Yeah.
If we, a lot of the NFT or crypto based games right now, the biggest problem that they have and the reason a lot of them fail is due to the fact they don't have enough adoption.
Yeah.
So I think we may see projects do things like that, but until a big player like an Activision, Blizzard type of situation comes along, I don't necessarily know if that's going to, materialize to the way that we think it could materialize. But I think in the long run, we'll end up getting there, and it'll be pretty interesting to see that. They're going to have to find ways to not make it like super microtransaction-y, but I do think that could be on the horizon in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we had some other ideas that we talked about with like real life node examples, especially as we got a chance to talk to, not this year Consensus, but last year, we talked to some people about, incorporating real estate into NFTs, and kind of sparked an idea of like, what if the node itself is like a high-end vacation spot? Like think of a place in like Hawaii or something, right? And it's a super expensive vacation rental spot. It's exclusive to a certain amount of people who can, pay the node fees, whatever, invest their money, and the reward payout, right? That APY is just the rental, profits. And maybe there's some sort of discount for those people that are, there if they want to go stay there. I mean, obviously there's so much more to work out, but I definitely hope, I kind of think we're going to see a Node season 2.0. And I think
so.
I think we are.
I think if we would have saw it, we were going to see it like in the last 6 months. And I haven't seen a single one retry this idea. And I think I just don't see how I could see a project doing it, I guess, but they're not going to make it work, I don't think.
Yeah, I think we're going to see, I think over time we're going to see fewer rugged projects to begin with. It will die down, especially, there's a lot of money to be made here. And if you do it the right way, you can make shitloads of money the legitimate way and continue that for potentially forever. But I definitely think the next bull run we're going to see, think about all these different waves that we had. We had DAOs, we had rebases, we had nodes, staking, all of these
reflections. I got burned on a couple of reflections. I had a couple that I actually made money on, but man, reflections. I actually saw 2 projects recently pop up with reflection tokens, and I'm like, damn, they coming back.
Yeah, what was it? The ETH printer. That's
ETH printer. Yeah.
Is that where that GIF arrived with that guy saying, the devs?
The cameo dude.
Yes.
I think his name is Nick or something. Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't remember from there. I think it was
Can the devs do something?
Yes, ETH-P. Is that what it was called? Yeah,
ETH-P. Dude, I made a bank on ETH-P 1.0 and I got screwed on ETH2 or ETH-P 2.0. They went through like dude, I feel like every one of these projects, like 2 weeks after they launched a V2. It was bizarre. But yeah, I got, I remember I put like $5,000 in there or something like that. And I turned it into like 11 in like, I don't know, it was like a week or something like that. And then I'm pretty sure I just lost all of it like in V2 contract or something. It was wild.
Yeah, and but I think as the bull market comes, like a true bull market, I know people are saying, "Oh, we're in a bull market right now." I'm like, no. This when you understand finance and when you understand the markets, you understand corrections, and we're still, especially like as we look at long term, it's a different market type. And I think when we experience a true bull market, we are going to see some of these come up again. And there will be some rugs, but maybe some people are thinking in line with some of the thoughts that I've had, and maybe some of these companies will try and redo a node project with utility day one that is sustainable. If a project does come out that interests me, I probably would dive into another node project.
For real?
I made money.
We're on the opposite side of the spectrum here because you made money on almost all yours and I lost money on almost all mine.
Yeah, I felt like the 3 projects that I lost money on were probably the most legitimate projects, and it was Atlas, Alph, and Red Light. And when I say legitimate, it had the most promise. Alph had a lot of promise. I locked up my funds with them to get that extra little booster. It was the first time. I know so many projects did that. It was the first time I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And, we had a special whitelist invitation. So I thought I was like, all right. I actually was able to make half my money back on that before they,
I made
pulled the
about
plug.
50% back as well. Yeah.
Atlas, though, was my biggest loss. And that to me was the most, at the time, I thought of all the projects I was in. I mean, that was the least paid out project. I think it was like 0.1% or something like that. And I thought, that perfect, it'll be sustainable. But no, of course not. And then with Red Light, I could have easily made money on that so many times, but I compounded the shit out of that.
I did the same, yeah.
Oh,
I could
my
have,
God.
I don't know if I would have made a huge amount of money, but I would have definitely done better than breaking even, and or just losing 100%, which I'm pretty sure is what ended up happening. I think I just compounded it into oblivion and then forgot about it.
Yeah. I remember we met Alex at a DeFi conference, and it was, to me, I mean, he stood out to me because, first off, we met him. He was very knowledgeable at the time. He was a smooth talker. I have no problems with him. I know people have problems with Alex, but just my personal interactions with him, he was a pretty cool guy. Definitely seemed like he had a little bit of inexperience, but I'm not going to fault someone who especially is young and coming into this, world of, if you got a little bit of inexperience, but you're willing to try things and push the bar a little bit.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know what happened with them. I know that they are still around today. I don't think he's a part of it, but for a node project to still be around today, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think with Alex, we met him and talked with him a couple of different times at a couple of different events. That's right. A couple different conferences, and I think I I felt okay about him. I think in my opinion, I think he was overly ambitious, and that was what I kind of called out coming out of our California conference that we went to, was the fact that when we went there, dude, he listed off
that's right,
8 spider web ideas off of his main project, and I was like, dude. I think I threw that out on Twitter at that point in time, and I kind of was just like, a guy seems genuine, but he's going in 12 different directions all at the same time, and there's no way that each of these are going to get the attention they need to be successful. So I just felt like he was spreading himself too thin and not focusing on the core of his business. And maybe it's hard to say at this point. It could have been a situation where he knew what was the inevitable was about to happen. Like, hey, this is not going to work. I need to do other shit. Or it could be he was just like, I've got this audience, I've got this community, I've got this project, we can spiderweb this into 10 different other things. Ultimately, I think obviously it just looks like it didn't really work out the way he wanted it to.
Yeah, sadly. Hopefully we see some of these, failed projects. I'll say failed, but non-rugs, people that were, good developers, good business operators, ethical people that maybe get into another project down the line. But
yeah, it's crazy when I reflect personally on node season, because it's it's kind of weird to me, because it's like, man, I consider myself, pretty knowledgeable and, kind of a savvy investor in a way, and, been through a lot of different things in the stock market and the crypto space and seen a lot of different things and stuff like that. And it's like, when I reflect on it, I'm just like, why did I think this was going to work?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that have the same mindset as me. After, it's kind of like when you come out of a situation, whether it's a relationship or something else, and you're just in the moment in the situation, you're all in, and you're like, this is a legit idea. And then after you get out of it, you're like, man, I was a freaking dumbass. So for me, it's I lost a shit ton of money in nodes. I probably lost close to $100,000, more than likely. Somewhere in the 100. It was probably somewhere between 80 and 100 grand. If I had to go back and do the math on it, it was probably $80,000 to $100,000 that I took an L on in during node season. It's I know part of the reason I got popular on Twitter was because of talking about nodes. And in the moment, I was very knowledgeable about nodes. I knew what was good and what was going to work, at least for the moment, and what wasn't going to work for the moment, and calling those projects out and highlighting things and all that kind of stuff. But looking back on it after the fact, it's like, how have I been able to invest in, stocks and crypto and, make money on all this stuff, and then somehow trip myself up into getting roped into guaranteed 2% a day, projects, and investing large chunks of money into those projects. It's just like, it's crazy to think about. But then on the other side, it's like, you're over there and you were like, node season was great for me. I made money. So it's like, there was a way to make money in that space. And I did kind of figure it out a little bit later, but it was kind of too late. The projects I made money on were projects that I invested smaller amounts in, and the projects I didn't make money on were the ones that I invested larger amounts in. So it's kind of crazy to look back on and think about and be like, God, I was a goddamn dumbass to go through that whole process and just think that I was going to come out a millionaire.
I think it's just it's emotions, right? Like we tell people, especially with bots, like emotions, you become an emotional trader. That's what bots eliminate, is those emotions, so you become a better trader. And I think emotionally, you're seeing just what everybody else was seeing. You're seeing these high percentage wins. You're seeing people like myself make money, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to put this in there. It was super high risk, but high risk, high reward, people, what people don't understand is that the money that you and I were investing in this was not money that we needed to survive on.
True.
It was a high risk fund that we were investing, into. But it's still a lot of money.
At the end of the day, yeah, it was. The good news, kind of like you said, is the fact that I didn't need that $100,000 to live my daily life. But would I have liked to have $100,000 more in my bank account right now? Hell yeah. But at the end of the day, it was a painful, learning lesson, for myself, and I'm sure a lot of people in the crypto space that learned a lot of valuable lessons through that node season. And it just goes to show you, kind of like what you said, is like greed and emotions. Regardless of how long you've been in investing or how well you think you have control of those, there's still ways that you can get lured in. Just like as a trader, you can get lured into a bad trade, and a lot of it can be emotion driven. And you could, get into a trade and, you're like so confident that it's going to work out, and you just hold it while it's still going in the wrong direction. You're like, this is turning around, this is going to turn around, this is going to turn around. And next thing you know, you're either liquidated or you're finally at a point where you're just like, I got to cut this. I'm down way too much. Yeah. And kind of similar situation happened with nodes. It's just one of those things where it's like, you get lured into something that looks super attractive, and at the end of the day, you get screwed.
Yeah, the universe hands out lessons in unique ways, but every trader, Warren Buffett has made horrendous investments, and he's often labeled as one of the better, or one of the greatest investors of all time. So, right. You learn, personally, I learn the most from my mistakes, right? Like when I think about some of my worst investments, I'll go and I'll look at, why did I do this? And 9 times out of 10, it's emotions. I'm following the trend. I let, for one moment, I get out of my own rules in my own head, and I start to see like what other people are saying about this. And that's one area of opportunity for me, is I'm not great at trading sentiment. I started out as a fundamentalist and I worked towards technicals, but as soon as I add in sentiment of other people, I lose all train of thought. I have definitely been close to selling positions that I wanted to hold for longer based off of things that I read on Twitter. And then, I always give myself, especially in my long-term holds, I give myself 24 hours to think about it. And I always were like, oh, what was I, who is this person? I don't know who this person is.
Yep.
And that kind of goes back to the whole, influencer marketing and people luring all these people in to these projects, and they have no idea what was going on in the projects. They didn't know any of the tokenomics. They didn't know any of, this, that, or whatever. They were just they were handed a check, they delivered a message, and that was their job. And I think as soon as people figured that out, they could use that to their advantage. The way that I made money in nodes is I invested in every single node project. I never compounded, not one time, in all these little shitty projects like Gorilla Nodes. Golden Node Society. Oh my God, that just popped in my head.
One. Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
But like I never compounded. I never stuck to their game. As soon as I got ROI back, as soon as I got my money back, then I was like, okay, now I'm playing with house money. I can do whatever I wanted. And even then, I mean, there were some projects that I let compound for a little bit and, they didn't rug quite away. But I mean, Gorilla Nodes is a prime example for me. Is this project I got into, and I remember telling you about it, and you were like, dude, what the hell? And I ROI'd in like 48 hours. I wrote it out for like 2 more days, and they rugged. And I was probably like one of 50 people that made money on it somehow.
Probably.
It wasn't a lot of money, but it was, all of that stuff added up. And unfortunately, I took all of my node profits and I put it in AVAX at the worst time. So I'm
$110.
It's everybody makes mistakes, but that kind of leads into this nice little segue into our last subject about making mistakes, is the bot hopping. It's so frustrating.
Bad. It is frustrating. It is frustrating. For those that maybe don't know, bot hopping is common thing that we see all the time with trading bots. Our trading bots, our Bread Bites trading bots, are hosted on Astrobit, and there's several other strategists on there. And what we see happen all the time is where a user will, have a bot and they'll subscribe to it for like 30 days, and maybe it doesn't perform the way they want it to, and then they'll go subscribe to another bot, and then that bot won't perform for 30 days, but the bot that they left performed really well the next 30 days, and they're like, oh man, I should have stayed in it. And I hopped over to this bot, and then maybe they'll go back to that bot, and maybe it will have an okay or a poor month, and then they'll jump to the next one. And there's like, I don't even know how many strategies are actually on Astrobit now. There's at least 20. So I mean, there's a lot you could hop around to, and we see this so commonly, so often, and it's just, I mean, it's almost gotten comical at this point for me, where it's just like, here's another person just hopping from bot to bot to bot. I mean, we've seen a lot of people just recently, we've had really good performance over the last 90 days across all our strategies for the most part. And, we've seen a lot of people rejoin our ecosystem.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen a lot of people that have been like, oh, I left when, February or something like that, you guys had a bad month, and I popped over to this other bot, and they've been terrible for 2 months, and now I'm coming back to you guys, and it's just like, I don't know how to drill this into these guys' heads a little bit further, but it's like, man, you really have to stay in a strategy for 90 days. I mean, this is trading. You probably have to stay in a strategy for longer than 90 days in most cases, but we see these people just hop from strategy to strategy, and it's like, if you're trading a strat, more than likely, I can almost guarantee this, and this is just speaking, I mean, it's speaking for all kind of bots in a way, but also mainly our strategies, is that if you're going to trade it and you're planning on trading it for 30 days, probably chances are you're really not going to make a whole lot of money. There might be a possibility that you catch a really good stretch for 30 days, but realistically, if you're just like in and out for 30 days, you're not going to make any kind of crazy amounts of money. And that's what ends up happening. People, jump in a strategy, they don't make massive money, they jump to another one, and then it's just like, they're just like slowly draining their accounts. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't think they realize it until it's too late.
Yeah, they're going off of this lagging data, right? It's really like back test data that they're buying. They're looking at the results and they're saying, "Oh man, this bot killed it the last 30 days. It's going to kill it this next 30 days." And so they leave, their account gets smaller. That has an effect not only on their account size, but it also has effect mentally, your morale. And now you start to think like, oh, I can't make money in this. How are all these other people making money? Why am I not making money? We see this happen all the time. And
daily.
As we ask questions, we're finding out like, oh, well, you bought this bot just happened to be a poor time. Then you decided to leave and you bought this other bot who, went on this tear on that month. And as soon as you joined, it had its rough month. So now you've taken 2 rough months. And then if you go back and you look at the first bot, now it would have made you all your money back. And
yep.
that does a serious number on your psyche, right? Like when you start to see that and you start to feel that, it's like, oh, it's so frustrating. And the people that are the most successful, not only in bread bites, but I would say confidently across the board, are the ones that are set it and forget it.
100%. I mean, the majority of the people that are subscribed to our strategies that have been with us for like 6+ months are overall extremely happy with the results and the performance and, our team, our transparency, everything that we bring to the table. The ones that end up not being super happy or question whether or not trading bots can really, make people money are the ones that go from strategy to strategy to strategy, and they're in this bot for 30 days, and then they're in that bot for 30 days, and then they're in this other bot for 30 days, and then they're just like, they might just happen to time it to where like every strategy they switch to in a 30-day period for several months does not perform that great, and then they're just like, trading bots are trash. Whereas if they had stuck with the original strategy that they subscribed to and ran that out for 90 days, probably going to be profitable in most cases. I can't speak for all other strategies, but I know for us, for the most part, if you subscribe to one of our strategies and are at least in it for 90 days, I mean, more than likely you're probably going to be fairly profitable on it. And then obviously the longer you hold it, generally you're able to see that compounding gains really take the action that it needs to really show that profit. Even like, I mean, Cinnamon Toast is a great example of that. It had a very poor February. A lot of people were down a good, like it had one of the biggest drawdowns we've ever seen it have in the month of February. And then, I mean, we lost a lot of people, honestly. Like a lot of people just were like, they were one and done. We gained a lot of people because Cinnamon Toast went on a streak of like 16 straight wins in January. And then we got a ton of people influxed into our strategies. And then in February, it had a very poor month. So most of those people, that was its first month and it was poor. And a lot of those people just left right away. And the funny thing is, like, then it went on a tear in the month of March, made back all the stuff that it lost in February and then some. So if those people that left in February had just been like, you know what, bad month, I'm going to stick it out, by the end of March, they would have already been like recouped and then some, and they'd be up on their accounts. But again, they either hopped to another bot or canceled and said, trading bots don't work or they're a scam or whatever. And it's just the nature of the beast, but it is what it is. But I think, people just need to understand a little bit more from a mental standpoint of how you have to handle those situations.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I could wrap this whole thing up with this famous quote that I'm pretty sure I've already said in a previous episode, but time in the market will always outperform timing the market. It reigns true in any aspect of trading, but especially in our bots and our ecosystem, the people who are making the most amount of money are the ones that have longevity in our products.
For sure. I mean, we see it all the time too with people when one of our bots goes on a tear, they're like, "Oh, I'm afraid to get in because of losses incoming." And I mean, it's a somewhat valid excuse or thought is that the fact that if a bot has a 75 or 85% win rate somewhere in there and it's hit 100% in the past several weeks, from a statistical standpoint, more than likely it is going to, pull back a little bit and potentially have some losses. But kind of like you said, trying to time that up, I mean, it's borderline impossible. Me and you don't really know when the next win or loss is going to come from any of our strategies. So, it's not one of those things where you can just time up when the best time to subscribe is. If you're planning on being in a strategy, it's just like just jump in whenever you want to jump in, you have the funds, you're ready to go, and then plan on riding it out for at least like 3 to 6 months and see where you're at on the other side. Most cases I would believe that you're gonna show a net profit at the end of that time based off the historical results of our strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got to 3 to 6 months. You have to keep consistent leverage. You can't be, I guess you can up the leverage, but you just have to know that as soon as you up the leverage, you're going to potentially, you might experience a loss, and that loss is going to be exponentially greater than the previous losses. So if you remain consistent with your leverage and you remain in you allow the strategy its time to breathe, you're going to, and you're not just removing funds or adding funds both of those can make a huge impact. You're going to see the best results. So, as a strategist, as a message to all of our subscribers out there, just be super consistent about it.
Yeah, consistency is key. I think maybe we could go into a little bit further in depth, coverage of this topic on a later episode or something like that. But I mean, there is so much variability with that. Like you said, if you add funds to your account or you remove funds from your account at a timely or untimely time, it could significantly change what your results are. If you up your leverage or lower your leverage, depending on what the results are of the following trades, significantly change your results. If you manually do anything, we see some people every once in a while trades down or something like that. I know our most recent cinnamon toast trade, it saw a semi-decent drawdown, but it wasn't really super close to our stop loss. I think we were down like, percent and a half or something like that. And there was some, handful of people saying, oh yeah, I might just close this thing out. It's not looking good or whatever. And, if you close that out and take a loss, and then on that specific trade, we got a reversal. It came all the way back, ended up winning on the trade. Someone that takes a 1.5% loss versus a 1.5% win, I mean, that's a pretty big delta, especially if you're running it at 5x leverage. I mean, you're looking at a 5 or 6% loss or even higher, maybe 6-7% loss on the loss side and a 6-7% win on the win side. So you're looking at almost like a 14% swing in your account by doing something like that. So we see things like that happen pretty frequently. And then we get, the people that say that, oh yeah, I'm down or whatever. And it's, a lot of it usually ends up being something like that where they added funds or removed funds, changed the leverage, manually traded, whatever. But I think at the end of the day, like you said, if you can stay consistent and you can stick with it for 3 to 6 months, you're probably going to come out on the winning side.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you want to wrap this bad boy up?
Yeah, it's been a good episode, a lot of good information. It's fun to reflect back. I mean, well, it's painful and fun to reflect back on node season, but it was cool to kind of go down memory lane a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'd like to check out more, you can do so at bakingprofits.com. And we'll check you guys out next time.
Thanks. Have a good one.